joined now here on RealAgriculture.com by Daryl Beswitherick. He is the Manager of Quality Assurance and Reinspection with the Canadian Grain Commission. And Daryl, that means you're the guy who kind of has a general overview of what we have for crop quality in Western Canada this year. Maybe tell us what you're seeing at this point.
Yeah, the crop quality this year is it's been quite a challenge just based on the weather that we've had. Right from the spring we had a late seeding, and then we've been hit with a lot of rain and poor weather for harvesting here in September. So that's translating into for the wheat crop, the red spring, we are looking at a lot of mildew. A lot of samples are downgrading from down to a 2, 3, some even into feed wheat for mildew. And that's the main grading factor. Fusarium doesn't seem to be a big problem. There are some samples downgrading for fusarium, but not that many, and down to number 2 generally. The red winter wheat crop was really hit by fusarium damage. There's a lot of samples. Most of them are being downgraded on account of fusarium damage. And high numbers, well in excess of 2%. So it's been a very poor crop overall because of that. When we go to the durum crop, our typical growing durum region of Saskatchewan and in southwestern Saskatchewan was really hit with some rain, and it's caused a lot of concern in the durum crop. We're seeing grades from number 1, there is some good stuff, and going all the way down to a number 5, and that's due to mildew again. Also sprouting is becoming more of a grading factor in the samples that we are seeing in the harvest sample program. And so it's there's also some midge damage out there, some fusarium damage, but yeah, lots of mildew, and so it's been a real challenge. We haven't seen a lot of frost in any of the wheat crop yet, but from the samples that we've seen. But with the frost and the snow that we got out in Alberta, a few weeks ago, we expect to see some frost damage in the wheat this year as well. Going into canola, the canola crop was a little concerning early on. There was some sprouting happening, but that was seemed like a very small portion of it. Now we're seeing a really nice canola, low, distinctly green numbers, and the chlorophyll numbers are very low, which coincide with the low, distinctly green. So the canola is looking very good at this point. In the pulse crops, we're seeing a lot of lentils and peas. In the peas, we're seeing pretty traditional, some downgrading to a number 2, some to a number 3 for the adhered dirt and immaturity. We're also, the lentils though, we're hit by the weather again a little bit harder than the peas. The lentils, the greens are being washed out a little bit just for color, overall color of it, being downgraded 2s into an extra 3. But the red lentils are being hit a little harder. It seems like they aren't taking the weather quite as good. And so they're a lot of downgrading into a 2, extra 3s for bleached, wrinkled, and just overall color of the seeds. So
many of these downgrading factors would be things that we haven't seen in quite a few years.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate the last number of years that we've had some excellent harvest conditions, and for the industry it's been great because we've had top quality crops to sell. For instance, last year in the red spring crop, about 75% of the crop was in the top 2 grades. This year, we're anticipating that number could be down into the 30 to 40% range. So maybe lower, but hard to tell at this point. We're pretty early in the harvest at this point.
One issue that farmers sometimes raise is the question of why they take their grain to one elevator and they get it assessed as one grade, and take it to another elevator, it's a different grade. Will that be more prevalent this year because some of these downgrading factors are maybe more subjective?
Yeah, with the mildew and frost, they are what we call a subjective grading factor, where there's no exact percentage that's applied to it. We create standards and guide samples that we share with the industry to help guide everybody onto the same page as far as where is the bottom of the grade for mildew and frost. And this year with those, with mildew as the prevalent grading factor at this point, and frost is probably going to come a little later yet with the, the crop. Those, it's who's looking at it, and the grading lights are very important if you've got the proper lighting to see it. And so it is a bit more of a challenge because it is like subjective and more of an opinion on, is it at the line, is it just a little over the line to be downgraded. So it can be challenging for sure. Yeah.
If a producer disagrees with what the elevator has given them for a grade, what is the process that they can follow?
If a producer and the elevator cannot agree on the grade of a sample, they need to agree on a sample that represents the load that was delivered, and they can submit that to the Canadian Grain Commission on a program that we call a subject to inspector's grade and dockage. And that program is an insurance that an independent third party will look at that grain, put a grade on it, and the grade is binding. And so whatever grade the Grain Commission puts on it, the grain company has to pay the producer for that quality. It also applies for not just for grade, but for dockage, protein, and moisture as well.
Okay. Speaking of protein, should there be differences between what elevators assess protein as in the same sample?
They shouldn't be different, but it is the responsibility of each elevator and elevator company to actually monitor their own protein or protein machines and calibrate them accordingly. The Grain Commission does not oversee that. So is there the chance that some are slightly different? Yes. There's also an error rate that goes with the protein machines of 0.2%, plus or minus 0.2. So you could get a slight difference just from two different machines, and both are accurate.
Just to help producers understand, where are the checks and balances then in ensuring that protein is fair?
Again, if they really disagree with their sample, they can use their subject to inspector's grade and dockage. Another thing they can do is they can get their sample checked prior to going to the elevators by an independent third party, or the Canadian Grain Commission, and we can tell them what they have, so that they, when they go and try and market their grain, then they know what the protein should be. If there is a disagreement, they can shop around a bit, as well as the elevator companies, when they ship to the port locations and ultimately onto a vessel, the Canadian Grain Commission will be checking the protein at that point with our machines, which are calibrated, and so they've got to meet certain specifications. So they need to know what they have in store.